click the links for Odysee or BitChute. There's a bunch of these different stories. He-Man, Peter Pan, I mean the Lost Boys, Tolkien, Snake Eyes, and G.I. Joe. But they're all kind of the same story. So they're doing these woke remakes. And first of all, the stuff is not for you. It's not even for your kids. It's not meant to actually be consumed. It's meant to be threaded into the cultural narrative that they are weaving. They don't care if you watch it. It's bringing you closer and closer to accepting more and more of this cancer. I feel like Art Bell talking about the quickening back in the 90s. It's bringing us closer to this point they want, this inflection point. They don't actually care if anyone watches it. It normalizes it. They don't need to make money. That's something that normies are kind of confused about. This is a religion to these people. They're willing to lose some money to subsidize these propaganda shows. They're not acting independently. They are parts of companies that mark down the propaganda as just another business expense, or it's an ideological expense, I guess, but they can handle it. They want to destroy icons that uphold European people, especially men. They are willing to lose money to do it. They don't want kids to have memories of looking up to European heroes. And if you told me I would be talking like this 10 years ago, I would have said you were out of your freaking mind. What can I say? It's like these people are actually doing this insane stuff. So you've got people like me who are just normies from Normistan, who are kind of slowly over the years becoming less and less normie because they're creating it. They're creating, like these people are creating the thing that they hate. They have to change history, so that got a little dark for YouTube, so that they can destroy the future. That's why they're race swapping black characters in for actual European historical figures. They don't care if it's cringy. They have to mock and degrade everything European and beautiful. Of course, stuff like He-Man is just nonsense to, let's get you in there, to sell toys. But look at the symbolism of the Crusader Ubermensch with a cross on his chest. He fought the anthropomorphic death representative of the death cult that I can't mention, or I'll get kicked off again. This is like the third channel. Now, this kind of stuff, or even Marvel and DC, are not examples of Western storytelling because the authors aren't always Western. They're just cheap writers who are trying to ape the style of storytelling. Mostly they're trying to sell toys, obviously, but the stories are pretty simple and stupid. And I was thinking of kids. When I was a kid, I look back at the comics and the music I listened to, and the comics were dumb and simple. Like anything before, I'd say 1990 was pretty solid, but they weren't insulting. They didn't insult my intelligence with propaganda. Yes, there's left-wing propaganda in all comics. Even go back to the 60s and 70s. Yes, there was propaganda. But as an adult, I look back on it and goes, these are mostly pretty enjoyable stories. The propaganda is light, and it's coming from not a toxic place that the people are doing it now. And I look back in music, and I listen to, the glam rock of the 80s that everyone listened to. And I look back on Motley Crue and all these other pop rock bands and realize, like, yeah, they weren't great. They weren't great, but they weren't insulting. They were just what they were, pop music or rocky pop music. If you're a kid now and you're growing up on these comics, I can't imagine kids growing up on these comics. I can't imagine kids voluntarily reading. I'll get into the High Republic in a second. I think their moms are buying them for them. But anyway, if you did grow up on like Ms. Marvel, Captain America, all this Immortal Hulk, all this garbage, yeah, Immortal Hulk sucks. I know there are fans of it out there. It's garbage. Al Human is toxic cancer. You're going to look back in 10 years at this stuff, probably after the revolution, and realize, oh my God, this is just propaganda, non-stop propaganda. And not only that, but it's insulting propaganda. So, comics, the old stuff, the good guys had virtue and honor as far as a cartoon or comic book would allow for. The stories at least felt organic, even if they were silly. The white pill is that this cancer won't sell. They'll make a Tolkien universe that looks like United Colors of Bennington ad threw up, but that's not the Tolkien universe. That's not Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is English and Christian. Okay, so the culture war is heating up, which is fine with me. I hope they accelerate it to the point where there is an open division. Now, communist Hollywood, which would be a challenge, because the bankers and media are globalists, so I don't think you're going to get like a alt version of that. You can replace the media, but replacing the bankers wouldn't happen without a galaxy-wide war, because I'm pretty sure that they are lizard people and they definitely don't want to give up power. The people making pop culture are not backing down. They have a suicidal lack of self-awareness. They are willing to push this to Civil War and World War III, probably because they want to figure out a way to profit from it. People think that these are for-profit companies. Yes and no. They are willing to have divisions that lose money as long as they are anti-white cancer. They are hardcore globalists. It is a religion for them. The same thing happened in 1918. The Bolsheviks starved half the country to death. The people behind communism are monsters who look human. Mordecai Levy, a.k.a. Karl Marx, is probably a lizard person. The stories that they're swapping out are usually English or European-based folklore and mythology, and they race swap them with non-Europeans. The Tolkien thing, they said it's going to be for like a global audience, which means China, but then like what did they do with Finn in Star Wars? They took him off the cover because they know China's not into it. When they do this race swapping, is they do it as part of their humiliation ritual, but it usually backfires because you're openly saying that the POCs don't have organic stories that are worth telling. Otherwise, why not tell those stories? The audience doesn't want woke stories. The market just doesn't support it. They spent $500 million for The Lord of the Rings, and it is going to underperform. They'll probably make the elves bad so they can have the blondes as the antagonists, and the hobbits will be mixed race as the protagonists. I only say that because, I see that kind of stuff. Almost every single time. So what it will end up looking like is a Hollywood set. There is zero suspension of disbelief when every character is a breastless POC lesbian. The viewer knows they're writing propaganda. The original Star Wars and Lord of the Rings worked because they all look like they belong together. When you turn on social media news now, you see riots because of cultural and biological differences. BLM is rioting. They're not called ALM. That tells you who they don't value. But films and comics show this 1984 imagined Pollyanna groupthink world where for some reason people abandon their in-group preference to have out-group preference. It sits in the back of the audience's mind, and it takes them out of the immersion because they're pushing globalism. We know diversity and globalism doesn't work. How well is diversity working for the Palestinians? 500 years ago, how well did diversity work for the Indians? Nobody seems to bring up, oh yeah, the Indians had open borders. How'd that work out? When groups mix, the weaker one is wiped out. The people pushing globalism are pushing genocide and also bad storytelling, which is almost as unforgivable. In the Star Wars High Republic comics, they have all these people of different species, who interspecies erotica, Clerks 2, who are living together and happily getting along. That is insanely stupid to think that they would get along. The story feels wrong. Humans can barely tolerate each other, but at least humans can have sex with each other, and that goes a long way. You can't mate with an Ewok. They're trying to push, and please don't try, they're trying to push these High Republic comics. This is issue 5, get in focus. And it's actually absolutely dog feathers. There's a breastless asexual WOC who's an absolute Mary Sue purse puppy. And there are twins who have special pronouns. Nobody wants to hear about pronouns because they're really, really annoying. And the people who push pronouns are just as annoying as vegans who do CrossFit. Yeah, I'm a vegan. I can't help but notice that you're 200 pounds. Yeah, well, ice cream doesn't have meat. Adults note that pronouns are for silly kids who will grow out of it, or for mentally ill adults who haven't. It's attention-seeking behavior for obese kids so that they can stand out in some way. We know this because we were also children at one time, but back in our day, we pierced things or we got mohawks and motorcycles, myself included. Nobody wants to see that nonsense in a comic. Also, in every comic, you'll see a evil or incompetent blonde male character. Both High Republics have that black female breastless hero and a blonde either evil character or just stupid and incompetent. I look at these and go, they built Europe. So just throwing that out there. The blonde character has to be either beaten or put in his place or rescued by a POC. That is insane. We empirically know that this is not how the world works. Go turn on the news during a national emergency. We know the way of the world. Trying to gaslight us makes Hollywood and Marvel look like propagandists, which they absolutely are. Stop it, dog. So what High Republic does to get around these racial tropes is to use non-human characters. The clear antagonists are blonde, the protagonists are POC, everyone else is alien. Nobody cares about aliens or shaved head, breastless, woman of color lesbians. They know they won't build a universe around this. They're trying to destroy a universe. Dog, leave me alone. Which is a good enough title, but it actually sounds pretty pretentious. They actually absolutely have to prevent kids from having European male heroes, so they replace them with things that are not as cool. Thor is cool. Captain or Ms. Marvel are lame. Valkyrie went 10 issues and it got canceled, so they rebooted it. I suspect it's going to be just as lame and get canceled in a year. They are desperate to destroy men, especially now with everything that is going on. I'm just saying you may want some 12-gauge fishing poles and lures. A Kia is not as good looking as a Ferrari, but comics and films are trying to convince you that they are. Think about it this way. You're never going to get another Arnold Schwarzenegger type character. Anyway, I gotta go pay attention to the dog. Alright guys, go to Odysee and Gab and BitChute and all that kind of stuff, because YouTube is so lame.